I had already lost everything, except one thing. And I was about to use it to destroy him. The courtroom was colder than I remembered. The walls, the wooden benches, the sterile light overhead, they all felt suffocating. My hand shook as I placed a pen on the dotted line. The ink on the paper was the final nail in the coffin of my marriage. The house, the company, everything we'd built together, all of it now belonged to Ethan. He sat across from me, smug, confident, practically radiating triumph. For him, this was the culmination of years of control, manipulation, and lies. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Are you sure about this? The judge's voice broke through the silence, almost as if she were asking me a question she already knew the answer to. I could see her skepticism, feel the weight of her judgment. The whole room felt like it was watching me, waiting for the inevitable collapse. I nodded without hesitation. Yes, Your Honor. I signed the paper. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. The sound reverberated in my chest as if the finality of it was somehow meant to resonate through every bone in my body. Ethan stood, grinning like a man who'd just claimed victory. But I was no fool. I knew what came next. The truth was still buried beneath layers of deceit, and I was the only one who could bring it to light. As I left the courthouse, the cold wind hit my face, but it didn't matter. I had made my decision. I was playing the long game. Ethan thought he'd won, but I had a secret, one that was going to tear everything down. I was just getting started. I checked my phone as I reached the sidewalk. A new message flashed across the screen from an unknown number. They're watching you. My heart skipped a beat. I glanced around, the hairs on the back of my neck rising. Who was watching me? And why now? I couldn't ignore it. I had made a promise to myself, and that promise was about to unfold in ways I couldn't yet predict. But it was happening. Ethan's empire, his carefully constructed life, was about to come crashing down. And I would be the one to bring it to its knees. I didn't know who to trust anymore. The walk back to my apartment felt like I was moving through a fog, each step weighed down by the sinking realization that everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. Ethan was dangerous, but I was beginning to understand the depth of it. Every time I thought I could breathe, the walls would close in again. The message on my phone replayed in my mind, "They're watching you." I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was always a step behind me, hidden in the shadows. But who? Who had tipped off the person who'd sent that message? Who could be trusted? I slammed the door behind me as I stepped into my apartment, the quiet hum of the city outside feeling like a distant memory. The room was dark, save for the faint glow of streetlights filtering through the blinds. I should have felt relief, but instead, the emptiness gnawed at me. Rachel, my only real ally, had been slipping away. She wasn't answering my calls anymore, and her behavior over the past few days had been off. Something wasn't right. The truth always comes out, I whispered to myself, the words I'd read somewhere echoing in my mind. But what if this truth is one I can't survive? I turned to the kitchen and grabbed a glass, my hands shaking as I poured myself a drink. I needed a plan. I couldn't let Ethan win, not now. I had to make sure the world knew the truth. But first, I had to figure out just how far Ethan's web of lies stretched. How many people were involved? How many people would betray me? The apartment felt colder than it had before, as if the walls themselves were closing in. As I sat at the table, the phone buzzed again. A new message. Don't come to the office tomorrow. They know about you. My breath caught in my throat. It was from an unknown number. Was this someone trying to warn me? Or was this just another game Ethan was playing, a manipulation to make me doubt everything? I tried calling Rachel one last time. It rang twice, then went silent. I cursed under my breath. I had no more time to waste. I needed answers. I stood up, feeling the weight of the night pressing in on me. There was one person left I could trust. Vince Marlowe, Ethan's former colleague. He had tried to warn me once, but I hadn't listened. Now I needed him more than ever. If Ethan's criminal empire was as vast as I suspected, Vince might know something that could take it all down. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. But before I could leave, I froze. A noise. A movement. Someone was in the hallway. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. My heart thudded in my chest as the sound of footsteps grew louder. Whoever it was getting closer. I wasn't alone. The footsteps stopped just outside my door. Then, they moved again, slowly, as if whoever was there was waiting for me to make a move. Stay calm, I told myself. I picked up my phone, my fingers trembling, and texted Vince. Emergency. Meet me. Now. The seconds dragged on like hours. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. And then, just as suddenly as the footsteps had appeared, they were gone. I waited, counting the seconds in my head before I dared to open the door. My breath came out in shallow bursts. I took one last look down the empty hallway and stepped into the night. As I left my apartment, I felt it again, the sense of being watched. But this time, I wasn't sure if it was just paranoia or if someone truly was keeping tabs on me. I couldn't afford to waste time anymore. I had to confront the truth before it buried me. Vince's office wasn't far. I could make it there in 20 minutes. But as I turned the corner onto the street, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from Rachel. I answered quickly, my heart skipping a beat. Rachel, where have you been? My voice was sharp, impatient. I'm sorry, Maya, she whispered. I didn't want to get you involved, but I didn't know what else to do. Ethan has connections. You're in deeper than you think. You need to get out of there. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, deeper? What have you? But the line went dead. I stared at the phone, the weight of her words settling like a stone in my gut. What the hell had Rachel just gotten me into? The world felt like it was spinning faster now, pulling me deeper into a game I didn't understand. But one thing was certain, I was in it now, whether I liked it or not. I needed to find Vince. I needed to find out what was really going on, and I needed to do it fast. Before everything I had left was taken from me. Because once the truth started coming out, there was no going back. I stepped into the darkened alley, the cold air pressing against my skin like a reminder that I was no longer safe. The city felt suffocating, its noise muted, as if the entire world was holding its breath. My fingers gripped my phone tightly, heart racing as I waited for Vince to arrive. I couldn't stop thinking about Rachel's last words. Ethan has. He has connections. You're in deeper than you think. The panic that surged through me was undeniable. It was one thing to be trapped in a marriage with a man like Ethan. It was another to find out that everything I thought I knew about him, and about my life, was built on lies. The lights above flickered. I glanced around, every shadow feeling more menacing than the last. Someone was following me. I wasn't paranoid anymore. I knew they were watching. The footsteps were faint at first, but they grew louder, closer. I stopped. My pulse pounded in my ears. I turned, but no one was there. The alley was empty. Just the trash bins and the hum of the streetlights. I took a deep breath and turned back to my phone. No messages. No calls. Nothing. Why was it so quiet? A sharp ringing pierced the silence. My heart leaped. I answered without looking. Vince? Get to my place. Now. It's not safe for you there. His voice was low, urgent. I didn't ask questions. I turned, heading toward his apartment. The streets felt longer now, the shadows stretching unnaturally in the dim light. My footsteps echoed off the pavement, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The whole situation felt off. Vince had been Ethan's colleague, a man who knew too much about him and his dealings. But was he really my ally, or was he another piece in Ethan's game? A loud crash from behind me broke my thoughts. I spun around, eyes searching the empty street. Nothing. Just the echo of my own breath, the thump of my heartbeat in my chest. I moved faster, the need to confront Vince growing with each step. I couldn't trust anyone anymore. Not even Vince. It wasn't until I reached his building that I finally slowed. I entered the lobby and made my way up the stairs. As I knocked on his door, the chill of unease slid into my gut. Vince had warned me, but what if I was walking straight into a trap? The door opened. Vince stood there, but he looked different. His face was drawn, his eyes darkened with something I couldn't place. Maya, you're here. Good, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. He stepped aside, letting me in. Where's the information? I asked, cutting straight to the point. What's going on, Vince? What's Ethan really involved in? Vince hesitated, running a hand through his hair. He glanced over his shoulder, as if making sure no one was listening. You need to sit down, Maya. It's bigger than you think. I sat down on the couch, my mind racing. What do you mean bigger? I've already seen the footage. I know what Ethan's done. But there's something else, isn't there? Vince sighed. He walked to the window, his back turned to me. There's a lot more. Ethan's not just laundering money. He's involved in something far worse. Something that goes beyond the city. Beyond the law. He turned back to me, his eyes cold and calculating. And he's not the only one. My breath caught. What do you mean? Who else? Vince leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. You really think Ethan's running this on his own? No. There are other people involved. Big people. People you don't want to mess with. He paused. And Maya. Your father's connected to this too. I froze. What? Your father, Maya. He's the one who helped Ethan build the empire. The company. The money laundering schemes. It was all set up years ago, with your father's help. I felt the room tilt, my vision narrowing. This couldn't be real. Not my father. Not the man I trusted my whole life. I'm sorry, Vince said, seeing my expression. But it's true. Your father's fingerprints are all over it. Ethan didn't just get here on his own. He's part of something much bigger. And now it's too late. There's no going back. The weight of his words hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just a betrayal by Ethan. It was a betrayal by my own blood, my own family. The walls around me started closing in. I wasn't just fighting for my freedom anymore. I was fighting for my survival. Suddenly, the sound of the door creaking open interrupted my thoughts. Who's there? I stood up, my pulse rising. The door swung wide open, and before I could react, two men stepped into the room, their faces hidden by the shadows. They didn't speak. One of them reached for something in his jacket. Vince froze, his face pale. Maya, you need to leave. Now. But it was too late. The men moved fast, grabbing Vince before he could make a move. My mind raced as the room spun. They were here for Vince, and maybe for me too. I took a step back, my hand reaching for the phone in my pocket. But before I could dial, one of the men turned to me. His voice was low, calm. We know you've been asking questions. Stop before you get yourself hurt. The words hit me like a slap. I knew I had to leave. I had to run. But my feet wouldn't move. I was trapped. I could still feel the pressure of the men's hands on my back, pushing me into the alley, into the unknown. I had no idea what they wanted, but I knew it wasn't good. My mind raced as I tried to piece together what had just happened. The room. Vince. The men. Why had he turned on me? There was no time to dwell on it. I had to move. I had to survive. I ducked into a narrow side street, the cool evening air cutting through the sweat on my skin. I couldn't trust anyone anymore. Not Vince. Not Ethan. Maybe not even Rachel. You have to trust your instincts, I told myself, whispering the words like a mantra. It was the only thing I had left. I reached for my phone, but it was dead. Perfect. Just when I needed it most. I cursed under my breath and turned around. The street was deserted. But the quiet was suffocating, and every corner felt like someone was lurking, watching me. I needed answers. I needed to find Rachel. She was the only one who could explain what was going on, but where the hell was she? The last thing I remembered was her cryptic message, the one that now felt like a warning. You're in deeper than you think. I quickened my pace. There was no way she'd just leave me in the dark like this. The night felt like it was closing in on me. Every movement felt sharp, exaggerated. I glanced over my shoulder, nothing. My breath quickened as I pushed forward. Was it paranoia, or was someone following me? I turned down another street, my eyes scanning the shadows. It was then that I saw him. Vince. But this wasn't the same Vince I had trusted. This one looked different, an edge to him, something cold and calculating. He stepped out from behind a corner, his face barely illuminated by the flickering streetlight. Maya, he said, his voice low, almost inaudible. We need to talk. I didn't move, didn't say a word. I just stared at him, waiting for the punchline. But there was none. You're in way over your head, he continued, taking a step closer. Ethan's not just some businessman, Maya. He's into something much worse. Much bigger. And now, you're part of it. Whether you like it or not. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my composure. I knew it. I fucking knew it. Why? I demanded, my voice shaking despite myself. Why would you help him? Vince didn't answer right away. He just stared at me, his eyes hard and unreadable. Finally, he spoke, and his words hit me like a punch to the gut. You were never supposed to find out. But now you're involved. He looked around, his voice lowering even more. It's too late to back out. A cold shiver ran through me. I stepped back, trying to make sense of everything. You're working for him, aren't you? No, Vince replied sharply. I'm not working for anyone anymore. But he paused, his eyes narrowing. You don't understand. Ethan's empire, it's built on blood. If you think you can just walk away from this, you're wrong. You're already in it. Then what do you want from me? I shot back, feeling the panic rising in my chest. Vince's expression softened for a brief moment, but it didn't last. I'm trying to help you, Maya. But you need to trust me. Trust him? I couldn't even trust myself right now. Before I could respond, a car screeched to a halt at the end of the street. Vince's eyes widened in alarm. Go, he hissed, his hand grabbing my arm as he pulled me into the shadows. We crouched behind a dumpster, the sound of the engine's roar still echoing in the night air. I could feel the blood pounding in my ears. What is it? I whispered, my voice barely audible. They know where you are, Vince muttered, his jaw tight. I was just trying to warn you, but they're here now. I looked toward the street. Two men got out of the car, both dressed in black, moving with military precision. My stomach dropped. These weren't just hired thugs, these were the kind of people Ethan kept in the background, his real enforcers. They were looking for me. What do they want? I whispered. Vince didn't answer immediately. His eyes darted around, calculating, looking for an exit. They want you gone. And if you don't get out of here now, they're going to take you. They won't leave any trace. I could feel the cold sweat on my skin as I watched the men get closer. I had no time. No plan. This was it. Where's Rachel? I hissed. She knows something, doesn't she? Vince shook his head. Rachel's just as caught up in this as you are, Maya. She was never on your side. My heart skipped a beat. That wasn't possible. I refused to believe it. Move, Vince said, pulling me to my feet. Now. We ran through the alleys, the sound of footsteps behind us growing louder. I kept my head low, trying not to panic, but my mind was racing. How could Rachel be in on this? What was she hiding? We finally reached a dead end. A narrow iron gate blocked our way, and there was no way around it. Vince cursed under his breath. We don't have much time. I looked around, my eyes scanning the dark street for an escape. But there was nowhere to go. The sound of the men's footsteps was so close now, I could practically feel them breathing down my neck. And then, just as I was about to lose hope, a figure appeared in the shadows. Rachel. But she wasn't alone. She stood with two men I didn't recognize, men who looked just as dangerous as the ones chasing us. Rachel? I breathed, stepping forward. But the moment I did, the door slammed shut behind me. She gave me a cold, empty smile. Sorry, Maya. You should have listened. My heart pounded as I stood frozen in the alley, staring at Rachel. The woman I trusted, the one who had always been my closest friend, now stood before me like a stranger. A cold smile crept across her face, but her eyes were full of something darker than I'd ever seen. Rachel, I said, voice trembling, what the hell is going on? Her smile faded, replaced by a look of quiet resignation. You should have stayed out of it, Maya. You should have walked away. My breath hitched. What do you mean? What is this? What are you doing with them? Rachel glanced at the two men behind her. They stood motionless, their faces obscured by shadows. I couldn't make out their features, but I could feel the weight of their gaze, the menace radiating off of them. You don't understand, she said, her voice barely a whisper. This isn't just about you. You think Ethan's the problem? No. The problem is much bigger than him. You've stumbled into something that's not meant for people like us. People like you. I shook my head, the pieces of the puzzle slowly falling into place, but not fast enough. What the hell are you talking about? You've been working with him, haven't you? All this time? Rachel didn't respond immediately. She didn't need to. The look on her face said it all. She was one of them now. She was tangled in Ethan's web, the same way I had been, except I had never fully accepted it, never fully understood it. I took a step back. So you've been lying to me this whole time. All the secrets. All the things you've been hiding. How long, Rachel? How long? You never asked the right questions, she snapped. You just trusted people. You trusted Ethan. You trusted me. But there's no place for that anymore. I felt the air around me grow colder. The shadows seemed to stretch further, closing in. The streetlight above flickered, casting erratic shadows on the walls of the alley. Why are you doing this? I whispered, more to myself than to her. Why are you turning on me now? Rachel stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. Because there's no turning back. We're all in this. All of us. Ethan, your father, me, and now, you. You want the truth? Fine. I'll give you the truth. She paused, then leaned in, her voice dropping to a cold, dangerous tone. Your father was the one who started this. He built the empire. Ethan just helped expand it. A cold knot twisted in my stomach. What? The word barely left my lips. My father? What are you talking about? Rachel's eyes gleamed. He had his reasons. He thought he could control it. He thought he could use it for his own gain. But once it started, there was no stopping it. He made deals, Maya. Deals that you'll never understand. And now? Now we're all bound by them. I felt the ground shift beneath me, and for a moment I thought I might collapse. Everything I had known, everything I had believed in, was now gone, washed away by a tidal wave of lies. My own father, the man who had raised me, who had given me everything, was part of this. He had helped build the empire I was fighting against. And I had no idea. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words caught in my throat. Rachel was right. I had trusted people too easily. I had believed in my own safety, my own distance from the danger that Ethan and my father had created. But now there was no running. Why didn't you warn me? I finally forced out. Why didn't you tell me the truth, Rachel? You could have stopped this. Rachel's face darkened. I tried, Maya. But you were too far gone. You didn't want to hear it. You thought it was all just business, that Ethan was just some man with too much power. But it's bigger than that. They're all connected. Your father, Ethan, all of them. And now, you're in the middle of it. The problem is, there's no way out. I stumbled backward, as if the ground itself had turned unstable beneath me. I don't believe you. You don't have a choice. Her voice was ice cold now. The moment you signed those papers, you became part of the game. And games like this? They don't let anyone walk away. Suddenly, one of the men behind her stepped forward, blocking my way. I froze, panic rising in my chest. What do you want from me? I demanded, my voice unsteady but fierce. Rachel looked over her shoulder at the man, then back at me. It's not what we want, Maya. It's what we need. And you? You need to understand that there's no way out. Before I could react, the man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button, and the sound of a phone ringing filled the air. It was coming from my own pocket. I reached for the phone, eyes wide, but Rachel stopped me. Don't answer it. You're not ready for the truth. Not yet. But I didn't listen. I grabbed the phone, my heart racing as I saw the name on the screen. It was my father. I answered it without thinking. Hello? My voice trembled. Maya, my father's voice crackled over the line, weak but unmistakable. I need you to listen carefully. There's something you don't know. The line went dead. I looked at Rachel, confusion and fear flooding me. She watched me closely, her gaze unreadable. What don't I know, Rachel? I whispered, my heart pounding in my chest. She didn't answer. Instead, she gave me a look that sent a chill down my spine. And just like that, the game changed. I stood there, alone, staring at the wreckage of what used to be my life. The walls of the warehouse loomed over me like silent witnesses to the chaos I had just lived through. The men had left. Rachel was gone, and so was the woman I thought I knew. But it wasn't the men who haunted me now. It was the truth. The truth I had spent years running from, pretending I didn't see it. That all the secrets I thought were buried deep under the weight of family, of love, of trust, they had all been nothing but shadows, lying in wait, ready to devour me when I least expected it. And it had happened. Your father, Rachel, Ethan, it was never just business. The words echoed in my mind, like a trap snapping shut. I could still hear her voice. Her cold smile. I had always believed that everything I'd been taught was truth. But I had been wrong. The lies were deeper than I thought, wrapped in layers of deceit that no one had bothered to explain to me. Trust no one. Trust yourself, I muttered, a cold chill creeping over me. Maybe Rachel had been right all along. Maybe I had trusted too much, too easily. I had placed my faith in the wrong people. I moved toward the desk in the corner, the faint hum of the warehouse's lights buzzing in the silence. The room felt like a tomb. A single file lay open on the desk, papers spilling out. It was a business deal, signed, sealed, delivered, by my father. My father, who had been a part of everything, who had built the empire I was fighting against. I flipped through the documents, each page revealing something darker than the last. It's bigger than all of us, Rachel had said. And now, standing in the cold, I saw it. The empire wasn't just business, it was power. Control. A world I had never been meant to see. But I was in it now. There was no going back. A loud crash echoed from the other side of the building. My heart skipped a beat. My breath quickened. They were back. I wasn't ready for this. But then again, when had I ever been ready? The door slammed open, and I spun, bracing myself. Vince appeared, his face grim. He didn't speak right away, he didn't need to. His eyes told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't over. What do you want? I demanded, trying to steady my shaking hands. I've had enough of lies. Vince's jaw tightened, his face set in stone. This is bigger than you think, Maya. You've got no idea how deep this goes. I know enough, I shot back. I know that my father started all this, that Ethan's a part of it, and that Rachel. Rachel isn't the problem, Vince interrupted, stepping closer. Ethan isn't even the problem. My heart sank. What do you mean? Vince's eyes flickered toward the door, as if expecting someone. He lowered his voice. You're too far in, Maya. You were always going to be pulled into this. But it's not just business, it's a war. And right now, you're fighting for the wrong side. A sudden realization hit me like a slap. You want me to help you? Vince nodded slowly. You don't have a choice. They'll come for you. For both of us. But if we stick together, we can make sure we control the game. That's the only way out. I stared at him, my mind reeling. You want me to join you? After everything? I don't want to. But I have no choice. You don't either. I shook my head, stepping back. I can't. This isn't me. I don't know who I am anymore, but it sure as hell isn't this. You don't get it, do you? No one gets to walk away from this. Not now. Not after everything that's happened. I didn't know what to say. The walls were closing in. I could feel the weight of everything crashing down. But even as the fear gripped me, I felt something else, a quiet strength, a flicker of the person I had been before the lies and the secrets. If I have to fight, I'll fight for the truth, I said, voice steady. Vince's face hardened. Then you've already lost. With that, he turned, his footsteps echoing as he left. I was alone again, left to face the mess I had inherited. The doors of the warehouse shut with a heavy thud. I knew what I had to do. I moved toward the desk, grabbing the file in my hands, the one that had held so many answers. The truth was here, but I had to make sure it was the right truth. I couldn't trust anyone else to give it to me. It had to be me. And in that moment, I realized something. The world I was living in wasn't going to get better. But I was going to fight for the truth, for my freedom, for my family, for my own redemption. No one gets to walk away. I would. And I would make sure that Ethan, my father, Rachel, and everyone else who thought they had me in their grip would feel the weight of their own lies. There's always a way out. Even when you can't see it. I stood tall, the weight of everything pressing on my shoulders. But it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't running anymore. This was my fight now. And I would win.